we've been talking about boundaries and hospitality, and especially I'm interested myself, how have you got on here, Andy? You've got Anna, you've got the 2 kids, and you've got loads of visitors. What sort of boundaries have you had to put in?
I think we had to realise fairly early on that what Anna could cope with hospitality-wise and what I could cope with were different numbers of people. That's just according to our different motivations. You know, my life would always be a crowd scene compared to her preferences. But also, living where we do on Holy Island, we fairly quickly realised that if, for instance, we had a guest room and we did the kind of hospitality that would come naturally to us, we could guarantee that it would be full 365 days each year. And Anna certainly said, I couldn't live with having people with us all the time like that, and I don't think I could either.
Not the kids.
Oh, certainly not the kids. Whereas if we want to be here long term and do the hospitality seriously, then our rule of saying yes to availability through hospitality has to involve not putting people up, because that way we're able to still be here, we don't get so overwhelmed. And just even the difference of having the shed now, even with this house, makes just an extra space for any one of us to get away to. That's huge. And then we have a friend who gives us the use of a cottage a lot of the time, not to put people up, but if I have a group who come, or somebody turns up and it's raining, do you know what I mean? There's a place, a physical place other than the home that you can sometimes take people to. And then for a lot of years we had the use of the church as well.
I think the same was true for Linda and I, that we've always been fortunate to have a reasonably sized house, and that God's been in that. But certainly we reached a point at the Grange where we couldn't go on any longer with the hospitality because it was overwhelming, it was expensive, and really we were offering hospitality as a family for what really a community was needing to offer. And when we moved to Hetton, we had the opportunity then to corporately, if you like, as a community, care and offer hospitality to the people that needed to be. And I think it's important that, we said before, family life is holy ground, and it is important that there's barriers that are put in. Barriers in terms of knowing what your limitations are. There's some lovely Desert Father stories. I mean, I love the Leek one, where there's a story in the desert. You can imagine different hermitages or little skeets.
This is the water and the vegetables.
Water and the vegetables, they're all over the place. And they had a code in the desert and for people who were difficult, basically. And one of the brothers had some people who came, and basically they were just people who were curious. They were people who weren't serious, and they were taking advantage of the hospitality of the hermit. And I don't know if I get the story exactly, but basically what the hermit said was, when you go down the road and you go to and you meet up with the next hermit in the desert, give him a message for me. And the message was simple: don't water the vegetables. And so when the group went off again and they arrived at the hermit's house and he greeted them and he was pleased to see them offering hospitality, they said, oh, we've got a message from the hermit up the road, don't water the vegetables. And that was a clue which said, these people aren't serious, they're just curious. Or even worse than curious, they're just going to use up your time. So the monk said, I'm so pleased to see you. I've got special vigils going on at the moment. We're fasting and we're praying. And one of the things I used to teach people when I first went to Hetton was the whole thing of greeting people and meeting people. And you greet everybody the same. Greeting people with joy, seeing Christ in the person who's being greeted. But you also need to meet with them, and you need to find out why they're there, what it is they need, and are you able to supply their need within the limitations of what God has given to you. And I made some mistakes early on because I used to have people who had psychotic illnesses, and some of the time that was okay, but it got crazy sometimes.
Then you have another thing that happens, and that's that people will come, and if you're not careful, however long they stay, it's just as they're leaving that they begin to open up why they're really there.
Yeah.
But that's just to do with all of us, I think, feeling vulnerable and threatened and it being hard. to let things surface.
And I think it's important as well that you can extend your boundaries. I think what you just said is really important, that you can have somebody staying, and it might be at the most unwelcome times of the day or night, that why they're here emerges. And
it's like people always get baptised. If they're going to get baptised in the North Sea, it always seems to be in February.
Yes, when it's freezing.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to have this thing about doing 3 days and 3 nights, and many times I did 3 days and 3 nights with people, all straight through, where something would happen. The reason why they came to visit us would come out, and you just couldn't stop it. And so we'd have to adjust. Linda'd have to adjust picking up the kid, going to work for me sometimes, because an important moment had happened. And I think this is the difference between hospitality and entertainment. Entertainment is something you're in control of. It's your friends for a particular time, which is great. Hospitality is something God's in control of, and sometimes it'll infringe on your personal space, your personal time. As long as it's God impinging, I think that's impinging. That's it, isn't it? And it's not us just being nice, because nice can get us in.
I just think for a lot of people, hospitality might mean always keeping a guest room there, so that if somebody comes, you can make the right amount of fuss of them. But if you're in particular circumstances or particular places where people are going to be drawn there, then it might be that in order to offer that level of hospitality, it can't be something that you do on your own.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that recently, actually, because I'm doing something at the moment, and we had a mother house, and we had a mother house with rooms. We had a mother house that had people who are actually able to offer and help other people, people who were trained in retreats, right? People who were able to handle difficult situations because people would have difficult moments, and therefore we handled it together. But when you go down a level, perhaps I've been talking about a prayer house, where specifically you're putting hospitality to one side, you're making your prayer room, your place where people can stay, and you feel as if you've got enough resources to care for those people, and it doesn't just take everything out of you. And then there's the hospitality, where you have no ability to put people up, in that sense, but you've got the opportunity to really meet with people.
And those things can happen that are a God event, as well as things that because folk have been specifically sent to you or know you already, or connection through the church or whatever it is. I remember when I was living in the Starbank, just the house opposite, years ago, and there was a lad just turned up at my door, and he'd been at Haggerston and had ended up having some kind of an episode where he had an argument with his family, and he set off and he walked, and by the time he'd walked from Haggerston, his feet were cut and hurt and everything. The first thing I did was sit him down, put the kettle on, and literally went down, washed his feet while I tried to find out what was going on with him. We're still in contact with that lad now, but after all these years. But so that's a practical thing, and you know as you're doing it, it's kind of like you wash the feet of the stranger, and it's something of biblical proportions, but it's actually happening in a real life situation where you know that person's been sent to you.
I think that's really helpful. One of the things I learned of Andy early on was, one, you didn't need a home for hospitality. You'd create a home where you were. I watched that. And the second thing is, you didn't need to be somebody to experience your hospitality. And that was an important thing to me, because so many times I've seen in the world and the church that the more important you are, the more greeted you are, the more hospitality you got. But to be fair to you, and I've seen it and I learned from it, you had everybody in your entourage for hospitality. Sometimes I think, what's he doing now? But that's true. And I think if that was ever lost, I used to see it at North Friary where people, the brothers used to treat the wayfarers. And if that's ever lost, then I think something serious is lost.